While I was lying in the hospital with 3 broken ribs and a concussion from my adopted sister Lily beating me unconscious with a baseball bat, my parents were at the BMW dealership buying her a brand new car to help her recover from the trauma of attacking me. And 12 years later, these same people just called, expecting me to wire them $47,000 to save them from foreclosure. Not just expecting, demanding it like I owe them something after they threw their bleeding 18-year-old son out on the street, while rewarding his attacker with therapy sessions, shopping sprees, and a full-ride college scholarship. At 18 years old, I was discarded like garbage by the people who were supposed to protect me, forced to rebuild my life from nothing, while watching my parents celebrate their golden child's bravery in defending herself against the brother who'd loved and protected her for 5 years. They had hospital records proving I was the victim. Social media posts showing I was 3 states away when she claimed I attacked her, and 3 witnesses who saw her ambush me with that bat. But they chose to believe her lies because she was their precious adopted princess who could do no wrong. Here's what makes their current desperation absolutely hilarious. While they were bankrupting themselves to fund Lily's useless art degree and her string of failed business ventures, I was building a $3 million construction empire from the ground up. Now their golden child is 30 years old, living in their basement, and contributes exactly $0 to the household, while I own 17 properties and have enough cash to buy their foreclosed house just to demolish it for fun. What these pathetic excuses for parents don't realize is that I've spent 12 years documenting every lie they told, every witness they ignored, and every piece of evidence they dismissed, and I'm about to use all of it to destroy them in the most public way possible. By the time I'm finished, they'll know exactly what it feels like to beg for help from someone who considers them less than nothing, and Lily will finally face the consequences that were 12 years overdue. To understand how my family got to the point of choosing an adopted daughter's lies over their biological son's broken bones, you need to know how the golden child system worked in our house. When my parents adopted Lily at age 13, I was 18 and about to graduate high school. They told me she'd been through difficult circumstances and needed extra love and patience while she adjusted to having a real family. From day one, Lily could do no wrong while I could do no right. When she broke my gaming console during her first week, my parents bought her a new one and told me I should be more understanding about her adjustment period. When she stole money from my college fund, they said she didn't understand boundaries yet and made me apologize for making her feel unwelcome by confronting her about it. Every achievement I earned was downplayed, while every small step Lily made was celebrated like a Nobel Prize. When I got into college with a partial scholarship, my parents said, "That's nice," and went back to planning Lily's birthday party. When she passed her driving test on the 3rd try, they threw a family barbecue and invited all the neighbors. Lily could do no wrong, and I could do no right. But despite the obvious favoritism, I genuinely loved my little sister and tried to protect her from everything. When kids at school made fun of her for being adopted, I got suspended for fighting them. When she had nightmares, I'd stay up with her watching movies until she fell asleep. When older boys started bothering her at the mall, I made sure she never went anywhere alone. I was the one who taught her to ride a bike, helped her with homework, and listened to her talk about her dreams of becoming an artist. For 5 years, I thought we had a real sibling bond, despite our parents' favoritism. I believed she cared about me the same way I cared about her. I was the one they called when things went wrong. What I didn't realize was that Lily had learned to use my protective instincts against me. She knew exactly how to play the victim when she wanted something, and she knew our parents would always take her side over mine. She'd been watching me get blamed for her mistakes for years, and she was just waiting for the right moment to destroy me completely. Then, Lily made a mistake that would change everything. The kind of mistake that even our parents couldn't ignore, unless they had someone else to blame for it. The incident that destroyed my family happened on a Friday night in May, 3 weeks before my high school graduation. Lily had been caught selling prescription pills she'd stolen from our neighbor's medicine cabinet to kids at her school. When the principal called our parents for a meeting, Lily panicked and decided she needed someone else to take the blame for her drug dealing operation. I was at a baseball tournament in Denver, with my team posting photos and videos on social media throughout the weekend, when Lily called 911, claiming I had attacked her during an argument about the pills. She beat herself with a baseball bat in our garage, gave herself a black eye and some bruises, then told the police I'd done it because she threatened to tell our parents about my drug problem. The story was complete bullshit, but it worked perfectly. By the time I got home Sunday night, my parents had already decided I was a violent drug dealer who'd tried to silence my innocent sister. They wouldn't look at my phone showing I'd been 3 states away. They wouldn't talk to my teammates who could verify my location. They wouldn't even listen when I tried to explain that Lily was lying. "We know what happened," Dad said when I walked through the door. "Lily told us everything. How could you hurt her like that? How could you bring drugs into our house?" They decided I was guilty before asking where I'd been. The next morning, my parents called the college I'd planned to attend and canceled my enrollment. They emptied my savings account to pay for Lily's therapy and recovery. They packed my belongings in garbage bags and left them on the porch while I was at school finishing my final exams. When I came home to find my stuff outside and the locks changed, my father was waiting on the front step with a piece of paper. "These are the hospital bills from Lily's injuries," he said, handing me the invoice. "Bills you caused. You're 18 now, so you're legally responsible for your own actions." I tried one last time to show him the evidence. The social media posts, the tournament photos, the witness statements from my coach and teammates. He ripped the papers out of my hands without looking at them. "You're no son of mine," he said, and walked back into the house. Dad said, "You're no son of mine," and meant it. The first 6 months after being disowned were the hardest of my life. I slept in my car, showered at the gym, and worked construction during the day while finishing my high school diploma at night. My parents had destroyed my college plans and emptied my savings, so I had to rebuild everything from scratch with no safety net and no family support. I remember calling my mom 3 weeks after they threw me out, hoping she'd come to her senses and realize they'd made a mistake. She hung up on me without saying a word. I tried texting my dad with links to the social media posts proving I'd been in Denver during Lily's attack. He blocked my number. Every attempt to contact them was met with complete silence, like I'd died instead of just been wrongfully accused. The worst part wasn't the physical hardship. It was the psychological damage of knowing my own parents had chosen to believe obvious lies over documented evidence. They'd rather destroy their innocent son than admit their precious adopted daughter was a manipulative criminal. I learned to survive without the family that didn't want me. Meanwhile, Lily was living her best life as the heroic survivor of her abusive brother's attack. My parents enrolled her in private therapy, bought her a new car for her safety, and started a college fund to replace the money she'd lost when I forced her into drug dealing. She got everything she wanted by destroying me, and our parents rewarded her for it. The story she told everyone was that I'd been jealous of her success and had started dealing drugs to get attention. When she threatened to tell our parents, I'd supposedly snapped and beaten her nearly to death. She showed off her self-inflicted injuries at school and became the center of sympathy and support from teachers and classmates. Nobody questioned why her life-threatening injuries had healed completely within 2 weeks, or why there was no police report filed against me, or why I'd never been arrested if I was such a dangerous criminal. They just accepted Lily's version because she was good at playing the victim. Their golden lad got therapy while I got homelessness. But being thrown away by my family taught me something valuable. I didn't need their approval to succeed. While they were coddling Lily through her trauma recovery, I was learning real skills, making real money, and building real relationships with people who judged me by my actions rather than lies they'd heard about me. I started my own small construction crew with 2 other guys who'd also been written off by their families. We worked twice as hard as the established companies charged fair prices and built a reputation for quality work. Within 2 years, I was making more money than my father ever had at his corporate job. Every job I completed, every client I satisfied, every dollar I earned was proof that they'd been wrong about me. I wasn't a violent criminal. I was a hard worker who'd been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect him. I wasn't a drug dealer. I was a businessman building something legitimate from nothing. Every achievement was proof they'd been wrong about me, and with each success, I felt the sting of their rejection a little less, and my determination to prove them wrong grow a little stronger. 12 years passed without a single word between us. No birthday calls, no holiday cards, no attempts at reconciliation from either side. I built my construction company into an empire, bought 17 rental properties, got married, and buried my wife after a 2-year battle with cancer. Through all of it, the successes and the tragedies, my family remained completely absent from my life. I learned to stop expecting them to show up. When I bought my first house, I didn't save them seats at the closing. When I got married, I didn't send them invitations. When Sarah got sick, I didn't call to tell them their daughter-in-law was dying. And when I stood alone at her graveside, I wasn't surprised by their absence. The silence became my strength. Every year that passed without them proved I could build a meaningful life without people who'd chosen to believe lies over hospital records. I had friends who would take a bullet for me, employees who respected my leadership, and a business reputation built on integrity and hard work. 12 years of silence taught me I didn't need them. While I was building my empire, their golden child system was falling apart in spectacular fashion. Lily graduated from art school with $60,000 in student debt and a degree that qualified her for nothing. She bounced from job to job, burning bridges with every employer who expected basic professionalism from someone pushing 30 years old. My parents funded her artistic pursuits for years, paying for studio space art supplies and living expenses, while she created pieces nobody wanted to buy. When she decided to open her own gallery, they refinanced their house to give her the startup money. When the gallery failed within 6 months, they took out a second mortgage to cover her debts. Lily never learned to take responsibility for her failures because our parents always swooped in to save her. Every bad decision was someone else's fault. Every setback was just temporary, and every request for more money came with promises that this time would be different. She was 30 years old and had never held a job for longer than 8 months, but they kept believing she'd eventually figure it out. Their retirement savings disappeared into Lily's endless string of failed ventures. Their golden child couldn't save them when it mattered. The daughter they'd chosen over me had drained them dry and left them facing foreclosure at an age when they should have been comfortable. That's when they hired a private investigator to find me. After 12 years of treating me like I was dead, they suddenly needed to know where their discarded son lived and how much money he'd managed to accumulate without their help. The investigator gave them my business address, my net worth, and a detailed report on my assets. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing construction bids in my office. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but the voice on the other end was unmistakable. "Jake, it's your father. We need to talk." After 12 years of silence, they suddenly remembered my name. Over the years, I'd kept every piece of evidence that proved my innocence, not because I planned to use it, but because seeing the truth in black and white helped me remember that I wasn't crazy. The hospital records from that night were particularly damning. They showed that Lily's injuries were consistent with self-infliction, not an assault by someone else. The emergency room doctor had noted unusual bruising patterns and defensive wounds on the patient's own hands that suggested she'd been the one swinging the baseball bat, not the victim of someone else swinging it. The X-rays showed no signs of the kind of trauma you'd expect from a violent attack by an 18-year-old athlete. Instead, they documented exactly what had happened. A teenage girl had hurt herself to frame her brother. I'd requested copies of those records when I turned 18 and had legal access to them. The medical evidence was crystal clear. Lily had been lying from the beginning, and my parents had chosen to believe her anyway. The hospital records showed exactly who the victim was. But the most damning evidence was digital and completely impossible to fake. My social media accounts from that weekend showed a detailed timeline of my location, with GPS coordinates, timestamps, and dozens of witnesses who could verify I'd been in Denver throughout Lily's attack. I had photos of myself at the team hotel on Friday night, videos of me playing in Saturday's games, and pictures from the team celebration dinner on Saturday night, all posted in real time with location data that proved I was 3 states away when Lily claimed I was beating her in our garage. My teammates had tagged me in their posts, other teams had photographed me during games, and even local sports reporters had interviewed me about our tournament performance. The digital evidence was overwhelming and completely undeniable. I was 3 states away when their golden child attacked me. Anyone who bothered to spend 5 minutes looking at the facts would have realized Lily was lying. But my parents never even tried to verify her story. The paper trail of my family's betrayal was equally devastating. I'd saved every email from the university registrar's office, starting with the acceptance letter that had filled me with hope and ending with the withdrawal notice that destroyed my future. The emails showed exactly when my parents had called to cancel my enrollment and withdraw my tuition deposit. Dear Mr. Thompson, the final email read, "Per your parents' request and consistent with their status as your legal guardians, we are processing your withdrawal from the incoming freshman class. Your tuition deposit of $2,500 has been forfeited as stated in our enrollment agreement. We wish you success in your future endeavors." My parents had cost me my college education and thrown away my tuition deposit based on nothing but Lily's lies. They'd destroyed my future without asking a single question or examining a single piece of evidence that could have proven my innocence. They canceled my future in a single email. The witness statements were the final nail in the coffin of their credibility. 3 people had seen what really happened that night, and all 3 had tried to tell my parents the truth about their precious golden child. Mrs. Peterson from next door had seen Lily in the garage, alone, heard the sounds of someone hitting something repeatedly, then watched her come out with fresh injuries and dirt on her clothes. She'd told my parents this directly, but they'd dismissed her as confused and probably mistaken about what she saw. My teammate Danny's older brother had been driving past our house and witnessed Lily throwing the baseball bat into the neighbor's yard after beating herself with it. He'd called my parents to tell them what he'd seen, but they'd accused him of lying to protect me and hung up on him. Even Lily's own school counselor had contacted my parents with concerns about her tendency toward self-harm and manipulation tactics, warning them that her version of events didn't align with her previous behavioral patterns. They'd ignored that professional assessment as well. 3 people told them the truth, and they ignored all 3. Every adult who tried to help them see reality was dismissed because their testimony didn't support the narrative they wanted to believe about their golden child. The truth is, I could solve their entire financial crisis with a single wire transfer. $47,000 is pocket change to someone who owns 17 rental properties and a construction company worth $3 million. I could pay off their mortgage, cover Lily's debts, and still have enough left over to buy them all new cars without affecting my lifestyle one bit. But money was never the issue. The issue was that they'd chosen to destroy their innocent son rather than admit their precious adopted daughter was a lying, manipulative criminal. They'd had 12 years to apologize, 12 years to admit they'd made a mistake, 12 years to try to make things right. Instead, they'd chosen 12 years of silence. Now they wanted me to forget all of that because they needed something from me. They expected me to put aside the hospital records, the witness statements, the social media evidence, and the devastating betrayal because their golden child couldn't save them from bankruptcy. I could solve their problems with a single check. My real family, the people I'd chosen instead of the ones who'd thrown me away, understood exactly why I couldn't help them. Frank and Sophie. The couple who'd taken me in during my first winter homeless had become more like parents to me than my biological ones ever were. "You don't owe them anything," Sophie told me when I explained the situation. "They made their choice when they picked her lies over your medical records. They made their choice when they threw you out for something you didn't do. They made their choice when they ignored your evidence and kept you thrown away for 12 years. Frank was even more direct. "You know what they'd do if you saved them now, right? They'd take your money, get back on their feet, and go right back to pretending you don't exist. Except now they'd know exactly where to find you the next time their golden child screws up and needs a bailout." Their support meant everything to me. For 12 years, Frank and Sophie had been the family that actually believed in me, that celebrated my successes, and that stood by me through the hardest moments of my life. They'd been there when Sarah died. They'd been there when I built my first house. They'd been there through everything my biological family had missed. Frank and Sophie knew who really believed in me. I decided to meet with my parents one time, not to give them money, but to show them exactly what they'd lost when they chose Lily over me. I wanted them to see who I'd become without their help, and I wanted them to understand that their golden child had cost them the one person who could have actually saved them. One meeting to show them exactly who I'd become. I chose the coffee shop on Main Street for our meeting because it was public busy and had witnesses. I wanted other people to see and hear what happened when my parents tried to manipulate me into forgetting 12 years of abandonment. Frank and Sophie came with me for moral support, sitting at a nearby table where they could watch the whole interaction unfold. My parents walked in looking older and more desperate than I remembered. Dad's hair had gone completely gray, and Mom had the hollow-eyed look of someone who'd been losing sleep over money problems. They spotted me immediately and hurried over to my table with forced smiles and fake warmth, like we were just catching up after a brief separation instead of meeting for the first time since they'd destroyed my life. "Jake," Mom said, leaning down like she was going to hug me. I held up my hand to stop her, and she froze awkwardly before sitting down across from me. The rejection hit her harder than I'd expected, and I could see the first crack in her confident facade. They expected forgiveness, but I brought Frank and Sophie instead. The manipulation started immediately. Dad launched into a speech about how family helps family and how they'd always been proud of what I'd accomplished on my own. Mom added that they'd made some mistakes in the past, but hoped we could move forward as a family now that I was successful enough to help them through their crisis. "We know you've done well for yourself," she said, glancing around the coffee shop like she was calculating how much money I must have. We always knew our golden lad would figure things out eventually. You were always the strong one, the one who could handle anything life threw at you. The gaslighting was breathtaking. According to them, throwing me out at 18 with no money and no college education had been some kind of character-building exercise instead of devastating betrayal. They were rewriting history in real time, turning their abandonment into evidence of their faith in my abilities. The thing is, Dad continued, we need your help right now. Lily's been struggling, and we've been supporting her as much as we can. But now, we're in a tight spot financially. $47,000 would solve everything and get us back on our feet. They talked about their crisis like it was some unavoidable tragedy, instead of the predictable result of enabling a 30-year-old failure for 12 straight years. They wanted me to see Lily as a victim of circumstances rather than a manipulative leech who'd drained them dry. 12 years too late, they tried to remember I was family. That's when I pulled out my phone and started showing them the evidence they'd refused to look at 12 years ago. The hospital records went on the table first. Pages of medical documentation proving that Lily had beaten herself with that baseball bat and then blamed me for her self-inflicted injuries. This is what the emergency room doctor wrote about her injuries, I said, reading directly from the report. Defensive wounds on patient's own hands, bruising patterns consistent with self-inflicted trauma, no evidence of assault by external party. I watched my parents' faces change as the medical reality sank in. Next came the social media screenshots with timestamps and GPS coordinates showing I'd been in Denver during her attack. Photos of me at the tournament, videos of me playing baseball, pictures of the team celebration, all posted in real time with dozens of witnesses who could verify my location. This is me at 10:47 p.m. on Friday, I said, showing them a photo of me at the team hotel. This is me at 2:15 p.m. on Saturday during our game against Colorado Springs. And this is me at 8:30 p.m. Saturday night at the team dinner. I laid out photo after photo, building an ironclad timeline that made their golden child's lies impossible to defend. The witness statements came last. Mrs. Peterson's written account of seeing Lily alone in the garage, Danny's brother's statement about watching her throw the bat into the neighbor's yard, the school counselor's professional assessment warning them about Lily's manipulation tactics. 3 people tried to tell you the truth, I said, stacking the papers in front of them. 3 adults tried to save you from making the biggest mistake of your lives, and you ignored every single one of them because listening would have meant admitting your precious Lily was lying. Every photo proved who really needed protection that night. The coffee shop had gone quiet around us. Other customers were staring at the dramatic family confrontation playing out at our table, and I could see Frank nodding approvingly from across the room. My parents looked shell-shocked as the weight of the evidence finally hit them. So here's what's going to happen, I said, gathering up my papers and standing from the table. You're going to lose your house. Lily's going to face the consequences of her failures, and I'm going to watch both of those things happen without lifting a finger to help you. I looked at each of them one last time, seeing not the parents who'd raised me, but the strangers who'd chosen lies over truth and favoritism over justice. I said exactly what they said to me. You made your choice. 3 months later, I heard through Frank's connections in town that my parents had lost their house to foreclosure exactly as predicted. They'd tried desperately to find another family member or friend willing to loan them the money, but 12 years of pouring their resources into Lily's failures had burned most of their bridges. Nobody wanted to risk their own financial security on a family that couldn't manage money. Lily had to move back in with them during their final weeks in the house, which made their cramped apartment situation even more miserable. According to the local gossip Frank picked up, she was still unemployed and still blaming everyone else for her problems, instead of taking responsibility for the financial disaster she'd created. The neighbors who'd watched them favor Lily over me for years weren't surprised by how things turned out. Mrs. Peterson told Frank that she'd always known their golden child system would backfire eventually. "You can't build someone up by tearing someone else down," she said. "That family learned the hard way that choices have consequences." They finally learned how it felt to be abandoned. The son they'd thrown away for being innocent had been their only hope for avoiding homelessness, and they'd lost him through their own stubborn refusal to face the truth. As for me, walking away from that coffee shop had been the most liberating moment of my adult life. For 12 years, I'd carried the weight of their rejection and the pain of their betrayal. But seeing them desperate and powerless while I remained strong and successful had finally closed that chapter of my story. Frank and Sophie had been right. I didn't owe them anything. The family that mattered was the one I'd built with people who actually believed in me, who supported my success, and who stood by me through the worst moments of my life. Those were the people whose opinions mattered, whose love was genuine, and whose loyalty was earned rather than assumed. I'd spent 18 years trying to earn my parents' approval and 12 more years proving I didn't need it. The validation I'd been seeking had been inside me all along, in my work ethic, my integrity, and my refusal to give up when life knocked me down. I learned that believing in myself was enough.